a little sunshine to end 2022 for Northern Ireland. Temperatures then will struggle in the north, milder in the south. And here's your outlook into the beginning of 2023. Dry skies on Monday with even some sunshine.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instinct was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good evening and welcome to your Thursday evening. I'm Neil Fox, covering for the amazing Dan Wootton. Now, we have an excellent couple of hours of news and entertainment tonight with a fabulous panel helping me tackle some of the big stories around this week, including whether Rishi Sunak's pledge to tackle violent crime will actually fix lawless Britain, how we can tackle our worsening homelessness crisis, and what on earth happened to good Christmas telly. We also have some superb guests, including Jackie Weaver, who holds all the authority now, as well as the legendary comedian Tommy Sandu. Plus, in my monologue, I ask whether we put too much pressure on ourselves in our New Year's resolutions. All this and much more, but first we have the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Neil, thank you. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. Tributes have been pouring in for football legend Pelé, who's died at the age of 82. The three-time World Cup winner, who'd been in hospital in Sao Paulo since the end of last month, had been undergoing treatment for colon cancer. He's widely considered to be one of the greatest footballers of all time, with a footballing career spanning 20 years. Six-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo called him an inspiration. The Defence Secretary says the UK's response to China opening up travel abroad is under review. Ben Wallace's comments follow the government saying there were no plans to introduce mandatory COVID-19 tests for arrivals from China, unlike several other countries, including the US and Italy. Beijing has announced plans to reopen borders next week, despite the country's ongoing COVID surge that sparked concern. Well, the Defence Secretary also insisted UK borders are safe as the military steps in to cover for striking Border Force officials. Unions claim the country's borders are less secure as more than 1,000 immigration officers walk out in a dispute over pay. A senior source has told GB News that passport control operations are running very smoothly at all 6 airports where those officials have walked out. Meanwhile, Labour MP Khalid Mahmood has told us he would support a general strike.
Support the rights of the people to be able to strike. If they want to coordinate that, they're totally at will to do that. And if you don't call that a general strike, yes, because the people who work want to have the right sort of pay and conditions, and they should be able to do that.
A third man has been arrested on suspicion of murdering 23-year-old Cody Fisher on Boxing Day. The non-league footballer was stabbed to death in the Crane nightclub in Birmingham, which now faces closure. West Midlands police have said a 22-year-old man has been detained in London. He's the third person to be arrested on suspicion of murder, while 4 others have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. Merseyside police have said a third person has been arrested in connection with the fatal shooting of a 26-year-old woman in Wirral. Elle Edwards was killed outside a pub on Christmas Eve. Police say a 31-year-old man from Tranmere has been arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to murder. A man and a woman who were previously arrested are still being questioned by police. And the deadly storm that's been sweeping right across North America, killing at least 69 people, is now bringing wet and windy weather to the UK. The Met Office says the knock-on effect of America's bomb cyclone will see spells of unsettled weather over the next 7 to 10 days. Forecasters have issued an amber weather alert for heavy rain tomorrow for parts of Scotland, warning of flooding and travel disruption. TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Neil.
Right then, welcome to Dan Wootton tonight with me, Neil Fox, subbing in for the big man himself. Coming up on the show this evening. In my monologue, I'm going to ask whether the best resolution we could set ourselves is maybe no resolution at all, to save us from unrealistic objectives that only make us feel worse about ourselves. That's coming up in just a moment. In the clash at 10:15, after 90 boats crossed the Channel on Christmas Day amid reports of an illegal migrant working for Border Force, will the government finally take back control of our borders in 2023? I'll be joined by research fellow at the Bow Group, Benjamin Loughnane, and immigration lawyer Harjat Singh Bangal, and they'll duke it out and chat about it a little bit later on. Plus, after a tumultuous year in politics, oh my goodness, understatement, the woman who once had no authority and now commands all the authority, Mrs. Jackie Weaver, joins me to give her take on the worst behaved politicians of 2022 in both local and national politics. She's going to join me at 9:20. And after a spate of violent crimes engulfed Britain over the Christmas period, is there any way back for lawless Britain? And what happened to all the good Christmas telly? Seriously, my superstar panel I will be debating these topics and more throughout the show. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey. I've got journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Colville Ranger. Now, we'll also take a first look at tomorrow's front pages and the stories making tomorrow's headlines. And as always, we really want to hear your thoughts as well, so please send them to gbviews@gbnews.uk. Well, this is Dan Wootton Tonight with me, Neil Fox. Ready? Let's go. You know, the ancient Babylonians are said to have been the first people to make New Year's resolutions 4,000 years ago. They were also the first to hold recorded celebrations in honour of the new year, though for them the year began not in January but in mid-March when the crops were planted. It made sense. During a massive 12-day religious festival known as Akitu, they made promises to their gods to pay their debts and return any objects they had borrowed. Now, these promises could be considered the forerunners of our New Year's resolutions. If the Babylonians kept to their word, their pagan gods would bestow favour on them for the coming year. But if not, they would fall out of favour, with their gods, a place no one wanted to be. Well, a similar practice occurred in ancient Rome after Emperor Julius Caesar tinkered with the calendar and established January the 1st as the beginning of the new year around 46 BC. Named after Janus, the two-faced god whose spirit inhabited doorways and arches, January had special significance for the Romans. They believed that Janus symbolically looked backwards into the previous year and ahead into the future. The Romans offered sacrifices to the deity and made promises of good conduct for the coming year. Now, for early Christians, the first day of the new year became the traditional occasion for thinking about one's past mistakes and resolving to do better and be better in the future. Here's a thought. Just imagine if modern-day leaders had to publicly state what their resolutions were for the coming year, especially if it included promising their gods and us, the public that voted them in, good conduct, acknowledging their mistakes over the last year and resolving to do better and be better in the future. To be honest, I'm not sure many would succeed if we look at the track record over the last few years. Would they even make it till the end of January? Now, despite the tradition's religious roots, most people make New Year's resolutions only to themselves and focus purely on self-improvement, which may explain why such resolutions seem pretty hard to follow through on. So, the top 5 resolutions in the UK are: exercise more, lose weight, get organised, learn a new skill or hobby, and live life to the fullest. Any of those seem a little bit too familiar to you as well? According to recent research, about half of us say we usually make New Year's resolutions, but only 8% are successful in achieving our goals. But that dismal record won't stop us from making resolutions anytime soon. And if you go for it again this year, please don't beat yourself up if you're one of the 9 out of 10 that fail. After all, we've been trying for about 4,000 years and we still haven't cracked it. Maybe next year, eh? Well, look, here to react to my monologue is a pretty top-notch panel tonight. We've got former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey. We've got journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Kulveer Ranger. So, Emma, let me start with you, please. Are we too hard on ourselves about New Year's resolutions?
I think we can be. I've actually had one resolution that I made last year and I have stuck to it. But it was because it was an easy, simple resolution that made sense.
OK.
I decided, because I do most of my work from home, that when the laptop closes, I switch to evening lighting. So, because I don't have an home office, I work in the living room or work on the sofa, usually with the cat curled up next to me. But there is a difference between having the very harsh day lighting and then just putting on a few lamps, and that says to me, my mood has changed, the evening's changed. It just makes that switch from day brain to evening brain. Der brain all the way, but yeah, I do a lot of other things. I do increase my exercise throughout the year. I do diet. I do Slimming World. I've spoken many times about how I'm evangelist. But that, for me, is not a New Year's resolution. That's a weekly process. Sometimes you fall off the wagon, sometimes you don't. But it doesn't work if you make a promise at the beginning of the year that you just feel bound to. So the only time I think it works is when you do something that works for you.
OK. That's actually unbelievably sensible, isn't it? What a sensible start to the show. Oh, my goodness. Sean, how about you? Are you going to make resolutions this year? If so, what? And are you good at them?
I'll make resolutions, but I believe in small, constant improvement.
The challenge of a New Year's resolution, you make this big, grandiose statement to yourself, and that's your first clue, because if you really meant it, you'd make it to everybody else, not just yourself. And secondly, you really, the bigger the pledge, the greater the chance you will fail. What I believe in is you make a little list of small incremental steps, and you just keep plugging away, plugging away, plugging away. I'll give you an example. I wanted to lose some weight one time, so what I did was just reduce the amount of rubbish food I ate. But what I said to myself is I want to reduce by 20%, say 1 in every 5 times I'm about to reach for something ridiculous, a bar of chocolate ice cream, just don't do it. 1 in every 5 times, it was doable. And then I went to 1 every 4, 1 every 3, and the next thing you know, you've cut out a lot. And look at it like this. If you could just reject something half the time, that's a 50% improvement. And that's the way I approach these things. Because you know how it is. You promise yourself to go to the gym, you shell out all that money, and you go twice. You know, I try not to do that to myself.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, actually, the gyms must make an absolute killing, to be fair. Everyone signs up, you know, January the 1st, and by January the 30th, they're half empty.
They haven't got the capacity for everyone that's signing up.
If they did, it'd be terrifying. You guys have all been way too sensible tonight. Cool, Veer, please.
Do you want me to buck the trend, Neil?
Come on, let's get it down to...
Well, look, we're creatures of habit, aren't we? And we have vices. And at Christmas and at New Year's, we've probably indulged a little, let's be honest, OK? A bit more extra cake, a bit of Christmas pud, more turkey, mayonnaise, whatever it may be, whatever takes your fancy. And then we reflect on this as we sit on the couch and maybe watch that not-so-good Christmas telly, which we'll talk about later on. And then we think, what can we do about this, the guilt that we're feeling? And it's not surprising, 4,000 years of history and gods and religion and everything else weighing on us, saying, do something about this. And then we make these promises, which actually make us feel a little bit better. And why not? Because we could say, and I tend to say, why are we making this decision on January the 1st? Why can't I do it on any other day of the year? But probably because we've got a little bit of time to ourselves, with our family, to maybe reflect, look back, look forward, say we want to make something different, we want to make a change. We may not stick to it for another 365 days, but that little bit of change that improves our life makes us feel a little bit better. And if we could do something for others as well, you know, that's all for the better. So I think New Year's resolutions are a good thing. They say just help us focus a little bit more on what we can do to just improve ourselves in our life that little bit more. And have a little bit of fun while doing it as well.
I did say slightly tongue-in-cheek, clearly, just imagine a world where we actually asked our leaders to maybe make a couple of resolutions around, you know, the end of the year, beginning of the new one. What are you going to do differently in the next year? Are you going to tell the truth? Are you going to... I mean, my goodness, I don't think many would have lasted this year, let's be honest. It hasn't been a particularly...
They might have if they've told the truth.
If they laid it out, maybe they'd have to.
I actually think it's a brilliant idea. It's not about telling the truth. Look, people don't get into politics and start to lie, and anybody who's under the sort of scrutiny that senior politicians are under would end up looking like a little bit of doublespeak. But what's really powerful is to reflect. One of the key wickednesses in politics, a politician says something and moves on, and none of us look back at it. If politicians thought that we were going to go back and look at things they had been saying, then they would speak very differently. I think it would be a very powerful thing to do. And if you're sat at home now and you think, you know, I want to get involved in politics, find out what your local mayor said, your MP, your councillor, find out something they said, promised, pledged, said they'd do well, and write to them about it and ask them where they got with that. Because it do two things. One, it will force them to evaluate are they effective, and two, it will keep them honest.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, actually. I mean, it's an interesting question. Who would actually want to get in politics nowadays with the scrutiny that people, look, you've both been in, that are under, and the kind of abuse, to be fair, that people get, not only from the public on Twitter and social media, but actually by journalists, media as well. I mean, it's relentless, isn't it? You're right. How do you get good calibre people getting into it?
It's difficult. It's putting people off. Let's be absolutely honest about it. We all know this. We've been involved, you know, for numerous years. The scrutiny, the 24-hour media cycle that started in and around the Tony Blair years, because that's where it really started having rolling news. And that's evolved over the last decade with social media and everything else. And that's led to not just political scrutiny. Sean mentions promises. Those are called manifestos.
Yeah.
Those are there. Politicians put those out there, say, these are the things we'll aim to deliver. But it's the scrutiny of going through the process of having to deliver those manifesto promises, and then the way that scrutiny is coming in. And now we've got this toxified debate that happens in echo chambers on Twitter and on social media platforms, and it becomes so volatile. People, the general public, lose track of what's actually important in the debate. And I think that's where we have a problem.
And do you think that there are some really great candidates out there that obviously would be great if we got them into politics, but it just can't be bothered, just don't want to take the glare?
I think there's a real problem. I mean, I was talking to someone about this today. Like, the kind of person who has the kind of background that will not cause them trouble in politics are not the kind of people you actually want in politics. The people who've decided at 16 they want to be an MP and have therefore never messed up, never had a life, never done anything bits. I mean, I'm 47, I still do massive things that would definitely could disqualify me from public life. But, yeah, I made a big choice. I thought about becoming an MP. I'm on the minority on this panel. I'm coming from the left and the Labour perspective, but I thought about it quite seriously in the early 2000s. And then I thought, no, God, no, I swear like a trooper. I'm not a virgin, and I don't intend to remain one or act like I was. I've had an East London background. I grew up in the Manchester years, let's just put it that way. There are things that would ultimately disqualify me, even if I have the best ideas in the world, could make the best speeches ever, and would be a really good politician who can get things done. And I just think that, anyone who hasn't got that background is actually, and there's a very good book by Isabel Hardman from The Spectator about why we get the wrong politicians, and it's because we expect people to be better than us, rather than representative of us.
But even that's new. The real problem is twofold. One is the nature. So someone's scrutinising your policies, what you said publicly about, but that's fine, and they should go to the end of the earth to do that. The problem is they're scrutinising your life, and they're trying to counsel you, and that's the thing. I had a public conversation with somebody, and we decided somebody messed up, and they were calling for their job, and I said to them, do you understand that depriving someone of their job is tantamount to killing them? They have children to feed, etc., etc. And they said they didn't care. And it's the fact that people think they have the right to destroy people that's important. And the other thing is the press. Who watches the Watchmen? So the press caused tremendous pressure for MPs and other people in public life, but nobody looks at them. Sure. And if they were judged with the same lens that they judge everybody else with, the world would be a very different place.
Fascinating. Look, maybe we'll come back to this a little bit later on, because actually you're bringing up some really interesting points there. But coming up after a year of scandals, a Conservative coup and cutthroat leadership conference, the former parish council member and current chief officer of Cheshire Association of Local Councils, the infamous now Jackie Weaver, gives her take on the worst behaved politicians of 2022. That's coming up. We'll be back after this break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good evening. Just before we return to Neil, we've got some breaking news for you in the last 15 minutes. We have found out that fashion designer Dame Vivienne Westwood has died at the age of 81. Her representatives have said in a statement she died peacefully surrounded by her family in Clapham in South London. We'll bring you more on this story in the 10 o'clock bulletin. Now it's back to Neil.
That is, of course, extremely sad news from those 70s days, punk rock, Sex Pistols, Malcolm McLaren, all the way up to the present day. I mean, what an iconic designer she has been globally. We'll discuss her legacy, I'm sure, a little bit later on with our panel. Now, back to politics. 2022 was quite an unbelievable year, from the never-ending Partygate saga that saw off a democratically elected Prime Minister to the cutthroat Tory leadership contest that ended with our third female Prime Minister, who only lasted 44 days before MPs ousted her. A woman who knows a thing or two about having political authority undermined is Chief Officer of Cheshire Association of Local Councils, Jackie Weaver. And she joins me now. Good evening, Jackie. It's very nice to have you on the show tonight. So, you obviously, famously, in that Zoom conversation that went viral during lockdown, people were saying you hadn't got authority. Now you have, which is good. What is your verdict, though, on the year that we've just had?
Well, I think it's been an incredibly disappointing year. I mean, everybody's going to say exactly the same thing. You know, I have no reflections that are going to be startling. I'm just reflecting the things that people say. What I did think was really interesting in your previous segment about New Year's resolutions was how 2 things. One, I think all of our politicians offer far too much. They constantly offer what they think the public want to hear. And as a result of that, constantly underdeliver on it. And so our perception of them is that they lie to us. And then you take that to the next stage as well, which is, where's the accountability? And I thought that was really interesting. One of your speakers saying, you know, write to your local mayor, write to your elected representative and call them out on what they said they were going to do. I think that's a really interesting point.
Well, it is. And look, and maybe that, I think that's been completely magnified by social media too, because people are always trying to do, in a way, you know, how can we change the world in one line, you know, on Twitter. And of course, it's very hard to achieve it nowadays. I mean, you from a local council point of view and looking at local authority, I mean, some people would say that, in a way, so few people vote in local elections, though they are coming up, of course, next year. You know, really, the people that get in, do they have any authority at all? But clearly they have, and big budgets and big power.
Yeah, and I said several times that I feel that communities get the councils they deserve. So, you know, if you are not taking any interest in how a small group of men and women are spending your hard-earned money, then, you know, what do you want me to do about it? Yeah. And it's about kind of making people understand that actually they are spending your money, and you can get them to do something different if you don't think that's the right thing that they should be doing. And I think one of the problems is that people get very frustrated with national government. You know, they have that perception that they really can't influence change. And it makes me smile because, you know, it's kind of like it's put forward as being a perception that you can't affect change. It's not a perception, it's a reality. You know, at home, in your, you know, watching your telly and whatever, no matter how much you shout at that telly, you are going to change nothing.
Yeah.
But locally, you can make a difference. And you can make a difference in your own lifetime, which is perhaps, for people my age, even more important.
I mean, luckily for local councils and local authorities, apart from in your case, because it went viral, of course, because of that great spat we all enjoyed in many respects. Of course, everyone else, as we discussed earlier on, has this incredible spotlight. They're in the public eye all the time, 24/7 now, and it must be interminable sometimes. Have you ever thought of, now, particularly as you've had a bit of spotlight, trying to end up going up to the next level, going up to Westminster, or would you just could not face that?
It's not that I could not face it. I think what a hypocrite I would be if I was to say that. But again, I don't think I would make any difference doing that. I mean, it's one of those things that I'm not a party political creature. But in order to really kind of achieve something at national level, I would have to choose which party. And then you become a party creature. And although hopefully a lot of your aspirations and your personal viewpoints align with that party, some of them won't. And so in a way, in order to get something done nationally, you have to become somebody different.
Can we just remind our viewers of the moment in a way that made you famous? Because then I have a question to ask after it. But this was the thing that went viral during lockdown that we all kind of enjoyed, I have to be honest.
This meeting has not been called according to the law. The law has been broken.
It has been properly called.
Will you please let the chairman
Mrs. Weaver, please.
speak?
If you disrupt this meeting, I will have to remove you from it.
You can't. It's only the chairman who can remove people from a meeting. You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver. No authority at all.
She's just kicked him out. No, she's kicked him out. Don't. She's kicked him out. Don't. This is a meeting called by two councillors. Illegally? They now elect a chairman.
No, they can't, because the vice chair's here. I take charge. Read the standing orders. Read them and understand them.
I'm sorry, it's classic. It's like a bad Alan Partridge moment, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's when we watch that and we saw how heated they get. I mean, I guess is that what's happening in Westminster? Do you think as well, but worse?
Oh, well, a couple of things there. I mean, I've kind of done a very similar job, albeit in a very changing environment, because town and parish councils have changed a lot over 25 years. But in that 25 years, I've never experienced anybody get that angry ever. I didn't know people could get that angry. Does that happen at national level? Well, if it does, I think that's appalling. I mean, those men, well, one in particular, had absolutely lost control.
Yeah.
And any adult at that moment needs to leave the room.
I hope you don't mind us showing it again, because it is a classic bit of TV, I've got to be honest. And do you still speak to those people? Did you ever become friends afterwards, after you'd all become internet sensations?
I can't say that we did. I was approached by a TV programme that had a wonderful idea for a TV show, which was kind of around forgiveness. And although I don't say no to a lot, I kind of felt, no, this just not would be the right programme at all. But I don't feel any animosity to the people concerned or any time the programme's shown, because I think it's done more to raise awareness of town and parish councils than anything else I've been involved with in the last 25 years. So I thank you for that.
Jackie, it's been lovely chatting to you, and I wish you a very happy new year. Thank you very much for being on.
And not too many resolutions.
Yeah, well, that was Chief Officer of Cheshire Association of Local Councils, the legendary now Jackie Weaver. Right, coming up after the break, after the Prime Minister pledged more resources for police to tackle serious crime following a spate of violent incidents over Christmas, my superstar panel and I will debate whether the government can actually get a grip on lawless Britain.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the Christmas period has been marred by a spate of sickening violent crimes, including the Christmas Eve shooting of beautician Elle Edwards in a pub near Liverpool and the stabbing of Claudius Francis at his home in North London on Christmas Day. Lawlessness in Britain has never looked more terrifying. And while Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's pledge to ensure police have enough resources to tackle serious crimes is a step, obviously, in the right direction, Sean Bailey, we have to ask, is it just too little, too late? And what's the real cure here?
My response is we really all hope not. We need to get on top of crime in London. And let me make the point. If you're sat somewhere else in this country, you're wondering, why is everybody always talking about London? Crime is so bad in London now, we're exporting it to have a place through county lines, etc., etc. So it is important that we get on top of crime. But here's the real thing. I've been reading about what Keir Starmer's been saying about what he wants to do about crime.
Yep.
And if you read the top level, it makes perfect sense. He's right, let's go after crime, let's get people involved in resolving crime in their community. But I think where he's made a real mistake, he's talked about criminals as victims. Now, you'll always have a small group within perpetrators of crime who are doing it for survival reasons, mental health reasons, being bullied into it. But if your start point is that all crime can be massaged away, I think you're onto a loser. And also, as well, you have to be able to say to the victims of crime, at some point, we will take these people on your behalf. And if you keep saying to people they're victims, it changes how you do that, particularly when you talk about violent crime. If someone is violent, they need removing from the streets for the safety of us all.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be a much stronger line if he really wants to be taken seriously on crime. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we need to get stronger deterrence. And there's twofold. Earlier in the year, we had barristers go on strike. That is a part of our criminal justice system that needs more money urgently. Often the police find people, the court system can't deal with them, so that person in their mind has gotten away with it. When they go back to their community of criminals, it looks like you can do whatever you like and you get away with it. So when people use the word lawless Britain, that's the part that really needs to be looked at, and we really do need to get into the authority of the police on the streets. They need to turn up a bit more and they need to be given the authority they need. And the key part of that is we need to take away from them some of the work they're doing. You ask any police officer in this country what they spend most of their time doing, and they'll tell you two things: paperwork and mental health work.
Yep.
The mental health work, we should give them other professionals to do it.
I mean, is that part of the real problem as well, that the resources we have, the police, are actually spending too much time doing other things? It's hard for them to actually prosecute. It takes too long to prosecute. And so, yeah, these kids are walking back and going, I kind of got away with it. Because you get a feeling that a lot of young guys now, they know the law very well and they know there's very little chance they're ever going to get nicked.
The single biggest driver of crime is the fact that you will get away with it. So what happens is, we've in London, for instance, we've had a lot of weapons on the streets, and that's because we stopped stop and search. So Sadiq Khan ran on a platform of reducing stop and search, and then what did we have? We had 2 record years of knife crime, because people thinking, well, if I'm not going to get stopped, I'll carry a knife, and then the other half of young people thinking, well, everybody else is armed, I need to be armed. We have to give the police the authority to take control of the streets. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we've got to prosecute people. I'm a big fan of tags. With smart tags now, you could keep tags on people as to where they are. And why it's important, it means you don't have to deprive them of their liberty if they haven't done something so bad, but it means that they can't go on and keep reoffending because you simply know where they are.
Yeah. What's your feeling, Emma?
I think I agree with quite a lot of what Sean's saying, but I think it is more complicated than there being one simple answer. We all wish there were one simple answer.
Yeah, of course.
And if we could all magic away crime tomorrow, that would be wonderful. I think mental health is an enormous and under-considered component. And the police are doing a lot of what should be absolutely in another service. We should not be criminalising those who are having mental health issues, because that would just send them further down that path. We need to get much more early intervention with mental health support. And if that's taken into the police, it's the wrong approach. And we will reduce the initial offending rates, and we will reduce re-offending rates if we deal much better with mental health in this country. I think Storn is right that we criminalise too many things and prosecute too few.
Yep.
I mean, I think I was on here the other day and we were saying that the rate of conviction for burglary is 5%.
Yeah,
that's appalling. That's ludicrous. Burglary now, the only reason you call the police when you've been burgled is to get your crime number for your insurance, not because you believe anything will happen.
That's sadly true.
And so I think we need to think back to first principles. What should be illegal? Frankly, we need to really think about what should be illegal, what should be lock-upable illegal, what are the other sanctions that we can and should use, and how do we then build a system back from those first principles that works and is effective. And again, I think we need to get away from the day-to-day headline grabbing stuff and think actually, well, this may not please the people who are either on our side or the other side, the ones that we're trying to reach out to. But if it works, I don't care who's shouting at me about it, I will get it done.
Sure. Govi, can I ask you, it does feel that over the last few years we have gone very soft on the criminals, and for the victims, they've kind of been forgotten. You know, the police don't turn up, they don't show up, and it's true. Sadly, you just phone the police so you can get a number, so you can actually make a claim, and that's so wrong. I mean, in so many cases, I think we all must have examples in our own lives of times when, you know, things have happened. The police in the old days would have come, and now they don't. Maybe it's red tape, maybe there aren't enough of them, but what can we do?
Well, it's interesting. Look, when I went to City Hall with Boris Johnson in 2008, we were at a peak of a knife crime epidemic.
Yep.
It was terrible, and we had to tackle the issue of crime. It was the #1 issue for the city, but it was an issue for the country as well. And what you have to do is there's political... We've talked about it being a complicated issue.
Yep.
But you have to have political will and the clarity of political will to say that we're going to deal with this. That's what Boris Johnson did in 2008, and we brought knife crime right down, but we put a plan around it. And then you bring together the different leadership elements around this. You've got commissioners. We've also now got police and crime commissioners elected across the country to do something. I challenge people to name who their local police and crime commissioner is, because most people just don't know. And that means there's a lack of accountability and there's a lack of responsibility being taken there. We're all sitting here saying there's a problem with crime. So let's hold people, the political leadership, accountable to dealing with these issues. Let's get those police commissioners. And I've worked with several police commissioners in London. When they were given their priorities, they would then tell the mayor what they could do. And they would be held accountable for taking down homicide, taking down knife crime, looking at burglaries and everything else. And we put political pressure on and you give them the resources to do it. What we need is the resources. We need to see, when was the last time, Neil, you saw a policeman or woman walking on the street? Just a bobby on the beat. We don't see them. And I know they're out there and they're doing different things, paperwork, dealing with issues that they shouldn't be doing. We need to get the focus on the right activities, the visibility, the right structure and leadership in the Metropolitan Police and the different federations, and then get our politicians, and we've had 2 Home Secretaries who've been very tough from how the media reported it on the right-wing side of, you know, crime and lawlessness, Priti Patel and now Suella Braverman. They need to deliver on that narrative. Nobody in this country wants this country to be soft on crime. We want to see criminals caught, we want to see the right kind of criminal justice system results, and we want to see the prison service given the skills and capabilities to deal with it, because it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
We need this agenda, we need it now. And I think when you ask people what are the 2 main priorities for anyone in the country, one is always the economy, the other is crime and safety and security. So it's right up there, and politicians need to do something about it.
I mean, this is a story that will run and run right through the next year, for sure. Changing the subject, obviously we got the news flash that sadly Dame Vivienne Westwood had died. What are your thoughts, please, on the legacy she's left? Because back in the 70s, punk, Sex Pistols, working with Malcolm McLaren, I mean, she was a pioneer.
I tell you what I feel is lost. She was a real innovator. Yeah. She's the kind of thing, actually, that we hope our young people replicate now. They built a scene, it was world class, her designs were worn everywhere, and she did it and was proud of being British and doing it in that way. And I'd love for young people to look at her example and think, we can do that now with whatever young people feel, you know, is cool and hip. She really had her finger on the pulse, and also the quality of what she put out was unbelievable, and I think that will be her legacy.
You ever worn Vivienne Westwood, Emma?
I don't think she makes them for my shape necessarily, but I mean, she's a fantastic style icon. And when you say, have I ever worn Vivienne Westwood, I tend to wear stuff off the high street, but what you never should forget is that those things that started in that sex shop and on the King's Road, that trickles down to the high street. The things that we look at on the catwalk today and think that's bonkers. 5 years later, we're all wearing it. We're all wearing the M&S version.
That's so true. Colvia, thoughts?
I think the main thing here is she transcended fashion. You know, when someone moves on beyond from that area that they inhabit and the world, she became a household name. Vivienne Westwood, we can all speak about it. I think that just demonstrates what an unbelievable legend in the world of fashion, but generally in the world she became.
Well, we'll have more on that at 10 o'clock in our bulletin, but still to come this evening, after the former head of the British Army exclusively told GB News that Putin's hold on power could be on the line if Russia continues to lose ground in Ukraine, I'll be talking with Ukrainian MP Sviatoslav Yurosh about the situation in his country 10 months on from Putin's invasion.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Well, thanks very much for joining me. As we've just heard, Dame Vivienne Westwood has sadly died at the age of 81. The pioneering fashion designer made a name for herself on the fashion scene back in the 70s with her androgynous designs, slogan T-shirts and irreverent attitude towards the establishment. Right, we obviously have chatted to the panel with their thoughts, but joining me now is Dr. Lisa McKenzie, who was a regular attendee of Vivienne Westwood's parties. Lisa, welcome along. Thanks for doing this at such short notice. Must be a very sad day for you if you obviously knew her well.
I found out about 20 minutes ago, actually, and I'll be honest, I actually feel very, very sad. But can I just say that although Vivienne I worked with her on a project that she did called Intellectuals Unite. And for the last 10 years, at least the last 10 years that I've known her of her life, she was very committed to political activism. And I think as much as, obviously she was a fantastic fashion designer and she changed culture in Britain, but she was also deeply interested in politics as well, and particularly around politics about inequality, climate change. She was so much more, I think, than what we can encapsulate. I'm still trying to process really about how important she's been to our country, actually.
Well, the lovely thing is she always did it with a smile and that Union Jack as well. She was very proud, it seemed, of our country. I mean, her shop, Sex, is actually just down the road from actually where I live on the King's Road, and it's still there with that clock turning backwards day after day after day. She was a patriot. She actually was a real patriot. Yeah. And she cared deeply about Great Britain. And I mean, I used to have debates and arguments with her about that. And she did give me, I don't know if you can see, but she gave me this badge once a few years ago. And it says, politicians are all criminals. And, so she got a really wicked sense of humour as well, particularly around, the things that she cared deeply about. I think, I'm just really starting to think about what an important person actually she was to the country. I think we really have lost a great Britain today. Yeah, no, I would agree. Definitely a Great Britain. And, if you think back in the 70s, to the present day, we are talking, 56 years since the Sex Pistols. No, 55 years since the Sex Pistols, incredibly. And all that time, the legacy she leaves of fashion and being slightly irreverent and being slightly anti-establishment is one that actually has trailblazed around the world, doesn't it? I've got to say,
I mean, slightly. She was very anti-establishment. She kind of was both. She was both things. She had a real respect for the royal family, but at the same time was very critical about inequality, particularly in Britain. One of the things that I worked with her on was something called Intellectuals Unite, and she was absolutely committed in trying to get people to read and to think critically about life and about the way that power works. She was absolutely. We did a meeting once about the book Pinocchio, and she'd read Pinocchio, the book Pinocchio, and she said it's so profound. It's about capitalism, it's about society, it's about inequality. And we had a meeting about Pinocchio. She was an incredible woman, really was.
Okay. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us with your thoughts on what is a very sad day, and we'll hear more about this story at 10 o'clock. That was friend of Vivienne Westwood, Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Thank you very much indeed. Well, earlier today, Russia launched a fresh wave of missile strikes, one of the largest since the start of the invasion back in February, across multiple Ukrainian cities that left at least 3 people in hospital. Today's counterattack comes amid a worsening situation on the ground for Putin's forces after a series of retreats and setbacks. And now it's emerged the Russian leader could be unseated by his own generals if Ukraine continues to make gains in its successful counter-offensive, according to the former head of the British Army. Well, joining me now is one of Ukraine's youngest MPs, Sviatoslav Yurosh. Good evening. So thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening at what must be the most tough of times. So, Sviatoslav, do you think Putin's days are numbered?
He certainly has taken all on the invasion of Ukraine. He has made it very clear that what's his legacy to be the destruction of Ukrainian state and the annexation of it. He recorded an hours-long video before the invasion, exactly that purpose, explaining to the world exactly what he wants to do. I mean, that is something that our nation does not agree with on every single poll indicate ever since independence referendum in the 90s, where all of Ukraine, over 90% of Ukraine voted for independence. And ever since then, we were very very clear when discussing our future with the world that we want to decide our own destiny. We don't want to be any part of an imperialistic project by Russia. With this invasion, he certainly is seeing how all of his assumptions are broken down, and plenty of people in Russia are criticizing him, not just from the liberal opposition, but also from the side of the far right in Russia. Looking at some of those different media channels, they certainly are very angry at Putin and how he has mishandled this war in every single way.
I mean, it seems he's completely underestimated the fight of the Ukrainian people, and these gains that you've made recently must be a joy to all your fellow countrymen and women, I have to say. I mean, we watch this on TV over here, but we cannot in any way understand really what it must be like to be living over there at the moment. Obviously, next year, do you feel that the gains that you're making now can continue and you can get rid of them?
Most certainly. We have showed this around our capital, in the north of the country, in the east of the country, in the south of the country. We are now battling in the first World War-like warfare in the far east of the country. And basically, we are still not allowing him to further his offensive there. Basically, Russian tall assumptions, not just from our side, but from various global observers, are astounding. And it is very clear that we have shown the world that Russia is a colossus on clay legs, and Putin's biggest mistake is believing his own propaganda. And as far as continuing this, we most certainly will. No matter what Russia throws at us, we will keep on going until Russia leaves our country alone to decide its own destiny, which holds our goal all along the way.
I'm sure you must have been immensely proud of your President Zelensky when he visited Washington last week and the reception that he got, and also clearly the money and the backing that has been pledged as well for Ukraine.
Certainly, it means the world's watching and the world is taking attention to what is happening here. And our advances on the front line clearly show that this isn't in vain, that world support is not gone without actually victories, that we have certainly supplied aplenty. And my point in this situation is very simple, that we aren't alone in this battle. We are battling with everything we've got to win and to show the world that staying together in defense of democratic values and international law is something that can win.
Thank you very much for joining us. Please be safe, and we wish you a much better new year, clearly. We stand with you. Thank you. Coming up after the break, my superstar panel and I will discuss why the topic of homelessness seems to only be brought up for discussion around Christmas, and what more can we do to tackle rough sleeping. Plus, I'll bring you a first look at tomorrow's front pages and stories making the headlines. See you in a couple of minutes.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 o'clock. I'm Neil Fox in for the big man, Dan Wootton, and we have another cracking hour ahead for us. My superstar panel of Emma Burnell, Sean Bailey and Colville Ranger join me again to debate the big stories of the day, like why we seem to ignore the homelessness crisis all year, except, of course, during the festive season. And we find the answer as to where all the good Christmas telly went. Yeah, where did it go? We'll also be diving into the front pages, hot off the presses. And will 2023 finally be the year the government gets a grip on the migrant crisis? We'll debate that in The Clash. You don't want to miss it. But first, the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Neil, thank you very much. Our top story this evening. British fashion designer Dame Vivienne Westwood has died at the age of 81. The iconic designer, known for her quirky style, became synonymous with 1970s punk rock, dressing celebrities, politicians and royalty alike. Famed for her androgynous designs, slogan T-shirts and corseted dresses, she became one of fashion's biggest names. In a statement, her representatives have said she died peacefully surrounded by her family in South London. Now, tributes have been pouring in for football legend Pelé, who's died at the age of 82. Once named by FIFA as the greatest player of the 20th century, the three-time World Cup winner died in hospital in Sao Paulo, where he'd been since the end of last month. He'd been undergoing treatment for colon cancer. The footballing world has been paying tribute to the star whose career spanned 20 years. His family announced his death on Twitter, with his daughter saying, "We love you infinitely. Rest in peace." Six-time Ballon d'Or winner Cristiano Ronaldo called him an inspiration. The Defence Secretary says the UK's response to China opening up travel abroad is under review. Ben Wallace's comments follow the government saying there were no plans to introduce mandatory COVID-19 tests for arrivals from China, unlike several other countries, including the US and Italy. Beijing has announced plans to reopen borders next week, despite the country's ongoing COVID surge that sparked concern. And the Defence Secretary also insisted UK borders are safe as the military steps in to cover for striking Border Force officials. Unions claim the country's borders are less secure as more than 1,000 immigration officers walk out in a dispute over pay. A senior source has told GB News that passport control operations are running very smoothly at all 6 airports where those officials have walked out. Meanwhile, Labour MP Khalid Mahmood has told us he would support a general strike.
I would support the rights of the people to be able to strike. If they want to coordinate that, they're totally at will to do that. And if you don't call that a general strike, yes, because the people who work want to have the right sort of pay and conditions, and they should be able to do that.
A third man has been arrested on suspicion of murdering 23-year-old Cody Fisher on Boxing Day. The non-league football player was stabbed to death in the Crane nightclub in Birmingham, which now faces closure. West Midlands police have said a 22-year-old man has been detained in London. He's the third person to be arrested on suspicion of murder, while 4 others have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight with Neil Fox.
Right then, good evening. It's just past 10 o'clock. I'm Neil Fox, looking after Dan Wootton's hot seat. Now, coming up this hour, after more boats crossed the Channel on Christmas Day and reports emerge of Border Force officer being arrested for being an illegal migrant himself. Will the government finally get a grip on our borders next year in 2023? I'll be joined by research fellow at the Bow Group, Benjamin Loughnane, and immigration lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal to duke it out on the clash at 10:20. Now, do we as a society ignore the homelessness crisis facing Britain, except during the Christmas period, or do you make an effort to give back year round? My superstar panel and I will discuss Britain's homeless crisis next in the Media Buzz. Joining me again this hour is former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey. We've got journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell, and we've got former advisor to Boris Johnson, Kulveer Ranger. Plus, we'll take a look at tomorrow's front pages and the stories making headlines. I'm sure they're changing them around because of a couple of big stories this evening. Now, it's been 35 years since the release of this famous hit. Comedian and radio DJ Tommy Sandu joins me at 10:45 to discuss the song's impact nearly 4 decades on and why you need a lucky charm in your life in 2023. And we'll end the show with my panel's nominations for Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. And I hold all the power on this one. You will not want to miss it, although I think we might be changing our thoughts on this one. Now, while many of us were lucky enough to celebrate Christmas this year with loved ones in the comfort and the warmth of our own homes, for a few, it's spent living on the streets, simply trying to get by from day to day. But Christmas is often thought of as the season of giving and a time to think of people less fortunate than ourselves. Communities come together to try and help the homeless, and shelters lay on Christmas dinners for those with nowhere to go. However, Emma Burnell, you think more attention needs to be given to homelessness all year round and not perhaps just in the month of December.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm probably guilty of this as anyone else. One of the reasons I wanted to raise this is I've spent the last week working as a volunteer at a crisis shelter, which is incredibly rewarding, and I don't do it for plaudits. I raise it now because they need money year round. These 2 weeks that they will be housing people at the real sharp end of homelessness. They stay in hotels, but it's not just about the bed and the bath and the privacy, which I think is beyond valuable to these people. But it's also about the fact that they get amazing advice to help set them up for the rest of the year, try and get them into a move-on plan. They give them advice from anything on housing issues, legal issues, migration issues, whatever it is that they need. They also have wonderful services such as hair salons, manicures. Honestly, we always joke that at the beginning of the week, we all come in bounding with energy as volunteers and we get shattered by the end of it and look rather sort of bedraggled and tired, whereas the guests come in off the street. By the time they've had a week of sleeps, and one guest was telling me about his 2-hour-long bath that he'd enjoyed, they look a lot better than we do by that point. But I think it's really important that that spirit that we have at Christmas continues into thinking about what is needed to end rough sleeping for good, forever, because there is no need. There are some people who may never leave the streets. They probably are, by this point, that is what they're going to be forever. But that is not the majority of people that I meet. It's not the majority of people that crisis help. And I think it's so important that when we come to March the 2nd or September the 14th, we're still working on this problem so that next year I see fewer people in our crisis centre.
I mean, it is great, clearly, that we do help at Christmas. Yeah. OK, it's a time to give and we do come together. That's lovely. But it's true, there are 11 other months. Yeah. And these, and come January the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, whatever, these people go back on the streets and it's still cold, wet and horrible. Yeah, and they're hungry. I mean, it's obviously a bigger problem. How do we solve the homeless problem in Britain, Colvin?
Well, to be honest, many politicians have tried to look at this in many different ways, and it's a very complicated issue. We were talking about policing earlier. This is really complicated because whether it's mental health, whether it's drugs, whether it's dependencies, whether it's family breakdowns, whether it's asylum, there are many different causes that lead people to a position where they are very vulnerable and end up on the streets generally of our big cities, and London is a prime example of that. So for those of us who been and live in London, we know. And, you know, even at my time when we were at City Hall, we tried to look at ways of eradicating this. Politicians will say they want to stop rough sleeping, homelessness. It's really hard to do that because there's a constant turnover of people. What we do need is, as Emma's highlighting, is not just for at Christmas time, is a constant need to tackle the issue, the different elements of it. It's complicated, it needs investment, it needs resources, not just the generosity of volunteers at Christmas time. Christmas brings it into sharp focus because the weather, the need when we see those lonely people on the streets, it strikes with us because we're all coming together. And it does bring a certain energy to it. But again, it needs political will. It needs the will to say that we understand the reasons that are causing this and we'll deal with them in a way that delivers longevity to solving the problem, not just a short-term fix. It's hard to do, it's difficult, it takes time, but that effort does work out because we know we can turn people's lives around. We know we can get them back into a place that it'll be better for them and their families. But it's not an easy fix.
No. And surely this is one of those subjects that should be beyond politics in many respects. It should have a long-term plan to sort this out so that, you know, in a developed economy, I know we're having problems now, but really in a developed economy, we shouldn't have anyone sleeping on the street, should we?
I mean, there's a number of things you do need. Homelessness is really close to my heart because I was homeless for a long time. And there's different ways and different types of being homeless. People are actually sleeping on the street. People are sofa surfing. People have fallen out of employment or broken up with a partner and ended up on the street. It can happen to almost anybody at any time. And it's one of the most complicated problems because it is real fundamental to life. We've got some things to think about if we want to tackle homelessness. So, for instance, we have more and more single households than ever before. So rent is going through the roof because the demand is high. Less and less people can buy, so the government is constantly having to house more and more people, and that's creating a kind of pressure as well. And unless we can have a conversation about these things, devoid of the politics, and talk about the reality of it all, then we'll never solve the problem. But one thing that doesn't seem related, that's really, really important, is family breakdown. So if you go back 10, 50 years, whatever it is, more families, A, have the financial capacity and the physical capacity to hold on to their young people for a longer time, so they didn't end up on the street. In my own story, I had a very tough point where I was homeless. My Aunt Norma came to my rescue. I have absolutely no idea what I'd have done if my Aunt Norma wasn't there. And before that, my friend Alex, when I was at university. So those kind of things are important. So we need to leave those capacities in our society, in our families. But the key thing to say is this: there's charities like Shelter and YMCA that work on this all day, every day. Yeah. And I know we're saying don't just give at Christmas, but if Christmas is the only time that you can give. Yeah, these charities do a really fundamental thing because what they understand is that it's a nuanced position. They don't just say rent's expensive or it's all mental health, it's all drugs. They understand the panoply of issues and they work on them all for the individual and also do a lot of the thinking policy-wise that we all need to do. So if you're sitting at home today thinking, who could I support charitably in the next year going forward? Make a homeless charity that charity you help because it's really impactful.
And if you say at a governmental level, what would be the first good step, do you think, Emma? Because it's a huge problem, but like all these things, it's got to start with the first step. So what should happen next, in your opinion?
Build more bloody houses. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's just fundamental. We do not have enough housing in this country. That is the first step. Joined up government, so that instead of going, well, some people have a mental health and thing and that's causing it, sometimes we have a housing shift and that's causing it. Got to think cross-departmentally about this. Got to actually have, rather than have Home Secretaries vying over a diminishing budget with each other, actually coming together and having projects that look at all of these things in the round and work together to make sure, and it's not about anyone's individual glory, but actually getting stuff done. Sorry, I nearly swore there. I think that's key. I think it's absolutely key. And I think when you say you have to take the politics out of it, there is a sense of that. But I think that there are going to be political tussles over this because there is an argument between the left and right about the role of the state and the way that the state should or should not be involved in this. I obviously would have more state involvement as a big old lefty. But I do think that there are probably ways that we can agree and can take stuff that goes into a 5 or 10 year programme beyond the life of one government.
That would really help give councils more money.
Yes.
So
it gets back to a local level.
My politics is of the centre, but one of the real things, one of the organisations that's here, that's set up, that can do, that needs the help and could do this work, give councils more money to do housing.
And 1,000,000% I agree with Sean Bailey. There you go.
The challenge is, if you're deeply on the left, you want to do everything, public housing. If you're on the right, you think everything's private. There's an answer somewhere in the middle. We need a variety of housing, not just one type of housing. But the first thing we have to do is believe that we can solve homelessness, because it's a tough nut to crack.
Not just believe, I would say actually have the desire to go, we need to sort this out.
I believe the desire is there. I've spoken to politicians on all over the spectrum, but because it's so complicated, I sometimes think people think it will always be.
But to solve it, I know about councils. Actually, the devolution side of mayoralties, they can solve it. Mayors can really step in here. It's one of the things they can really tackle because these tend to be city problems, urban problems, conurbations where people are attracted to, and they're where the vulnerable people are. The mayors can stand up and do this, and that's what I think now the next generation of devolution should really
And perhaps if we could see some sort of partnership between Andy Street, Andy Burnham, Sadiq Khan, Ben Hilchin, across the spectrum, actually saying, well, these are the things our places need, and we need to have the power and the ability to do that.
It was one of the main reasons I ran for Mayor of London, was to provide housing. Because one of the big things, under all of the topics we've had today, one of the biggest things is family breakdown, and at the core of family breakdown is finances and having nowhere to stay.
Sean, Emma, for now, thank you. We'll be back talking more. But coming up, though, as UK Border Force official was arrested on suspicion of being an illegal migrant, will 2023 finally be the year the government gets a grip on the small boats crisis? I'll debate that with two expert guests in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hey, welcome back. It's time for The Clash. Now, earlier today, in a shocking revelation, a UK Border Force official was arrested on suspicion of being an illegal migrant. According to reports, the man reportedly lied about where he was from on paperwork to obtain the right to remain in the UK. And the same man is believed to be among 4 Border Force staff who were arrested over a separate incident on December the 6th. Now, this comes after another 90 illegal migrants crossed the Channel on Christmas Day, despite the Prime Minister's pledge to get a grip on our borders. So with the pressure growing from backbench MPs, will 2023 be the year that the government finally gets the migrant crisis under control? Send me your thoughts, please, to gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet them to us at gbnews. But joining me now to debate this topic further is research fellow from the Bow Group, Benjamin Loughnane, and immigration lawyer Harjeet Bangal. Gentlemen, welcome along. Very nice to have you on the show tonight. Benjamin, let's start with you. It just seems like it's completely out of control, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's, I think, beyond satire to now find out that you've got a Border Force employee who is not even a legal immigrant in this country, someone who's able to not only come into the country illegally and evade deportation for being in here when they have no right to, but can actually become a member of the Border Force who are supposed to protect our borders. I mean, it sums up what has been going on for the past few years now, where we look at what's going on in the Channel, and it seems as though no one's doing anything about it. The problem's just getting worse every single year. It increases, and no one really has the political will to get on top of it. And we now find out that even the Border Force have illegal migrants within them, and I just don't see any hope for resolving this issue.
Harjeet, thanks for joining us tonight. So, this is a real crisis, isn't it? How on earth, in your eyes, can we stop it? Because on the one hand, it's a humanitarian crisis. We have people putting their lives at risk and evil traffickers taking all the money and making fortunes off the back of them. And on the other hand, we have these vast amount of people arriving on our shores. How can we stop it?
Yeah, I think that we've been in a crisis for a long time. And I think for the past 10, 12 years, it's got worse. The number of removals and deportations is down to hundreds, and they were at 30,000 in about 2010 and 11. So what seems to happen is we are failing to remove people after their claims are finished. And on top of that, we're taking 2 or 3 years to decide a claim. So it's all building up, and effectively it has built up. What we need to do is, first of all, secure our borders, and we need to have an effective removal system. If someone's going to be refused asylum, then they need to know, look, if they're refused on a Friday, they might be sent back the next Friday, not the next Friday in 2026 or 27. So removals need to go up again. Secondly, we need to have trained staff. And I don't mean people who've just finished working in a supermarket and then land a job in the Border Force, as is happening at the moment. We need legally trained staff who can actually make decisions about complex laws. These laws that are written up by lawyers, by great lawyers and conventions, I've been doing this for 20 years and even I can't get my head around it sometimes. So to expect someone to walk in from a, say, supermarket job or a security job and say, right, here you go, you're going to learn on the job and to do a job effectively, that's not good enough. Rishi Sunak's announced an increase in staff. He hasn't announced whether they're going to be specifically trained or not to deal with it. Then a backlog he's announced he's going to shift. He hasn't announced what he's going to do with the backlog that's building in every day. So we're going to get rid of one backlog, and then we're going to have another backlog to do. And I think the other thing is, if someone has been here effectively for, say, 6 months, a year or 2 years, then we've got to look at the fact we've got to let them work and pay their own way, as opposed for them to be a drain on society and putting them up in hotels. The only reason we do that is because they can't work. If we let them work...
We've just been having a debate about homelessness and, of course, lack of funding for it. And on the other hand, there's a lot of money going that could maybe be spent on that, going on this route. So we seem to have two real problems here. One, of course, is that we've got a lot of people that have come in and we don't quite know what to do with them, and it takes a long time to process them. And then, of course, they are a drain on our resources. The other hand, of course, we've got... a lot of people still coming over and continuing to come over and paying a lot of money, this is all their life savings and more, just to get in one of those horrible little dinghies and come over here somehow. How do we stop that? Any idea, Benjamin? What would your theory be? Because it's great to go, we must close our borders, but when you've got an entire coastline, how do we do that?
Well, I think there are, as you point out, there are problems with how we're hiring people. The quality is just not there, but we have deeper structural issues. I think that, Britain is now seen as a soft touch. People know if they come to Britain, the red carpet will be rolled out, they'll get, put up in a hotel, they'll get greeted with a pizza, they'll get an allowance, they'll be allowed to stay here while their claim is being processed, whether it's legitimate or not. When their claim is rejected, it's very unlikely they'll actually be deported anyway. So Britain is seen as a great prospect if you want to come somewhere and basically take the mickey. Britain's the place to do it. And there's many problems with this. One is our approach to people who come here who are just here to take the mickey. We're not deporting any of them. The other is the fact that we clearly don't have the quality in recruitment with our border force. And when Rishi turns around and says, well, we're going to hire more people, it's like, well, it's not about the numbers so much as it is about, it's quality and quantity. It's not just about how many people you've got working. If the quality's not there, then it's not going to work out. And we're seeing the same problem within the prisons, for example, the quality of some prison officers. I heard a story about a prison officer recently went to a senior figure within the prison to say, could you sponsor my visa application? He went, hang on, you're not a British citizen. What are you doing working in our prisons? And it came out that this prison officer didn't even know that he wasn't allowed to take that job, and they just hadn't done a proper check. So you're seeing this across the board in all sorts of industries. And not only is it the lack of quality, but you also have a civil service who are ideologically opposed to actually enforcing our borders, who are actively frustrating any attempts to enforce the borders. So there's a huge structural and cultural issue, I think, around how we enforce the borders in this country. And without radical change from the top to the bottom at every level, I don't see how it's going to be resolved. So they can talk all they want. They can come out and say, announce a new task force or announce a new scheme or announce a new policy. It's not going to do anything. You need to really get the bull by the horns and take on the whole culture.
Because one of the problems, surely, is that France, in a way, are probably quite happy to get rid of them too. So they don't really want them back. If we stop them halfway before they leave their beaches, they're really quite happy they're leaving, aren't they?
Well, to be fair, France do take their fair share, more than that. So
no, they do.
They've got a lot. The majority of them do settle down in France, and we get a trickle-down effect. But I think we're missing, to answer your question about how do we stop it, it's very simple. How do you stop drug dealing? You lock up the drug dealers. You don't lock up the drug users. In the same way, you've got to catch the gangs who are trafficking these people. These gangs are making around about 200 grand a boat. If there's 4 in the channel, that's about £1 million for them. They don't care if 10 people die, 20 people die. The next day, they're still launching their 4 boats. These people don't just walk up to the beach and say, let's get on a dinghy. It's all planned. They pay for the service, right? So who are they paying it to? We've got to find these people. We've got to cut the head off the snake. If we can go and grab drug dealers, if we can go and kill Osama bin Laden, who's hiding out, if we can go and get Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, and we can't get these people who are trafficking, these people from the same route for the last 20 years while I've been doing my job, Calais to Dover. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. It's like somebody catching the same bus route with the same driver for 20 years and then saying, well, hold on, who's driving that bus? I don't know, Governor. I haven't got a clue. We know who the gangs are. We need to set up elite units almost SAS style, to go out and nab these gangs and then put them in jail for life and make examples of them. Not send them down for a couple of years and they're out in a year, or 4 years and they're out in 2. People trafficking makes more money than drug trafficking. Now,
we have made that reached an agreement with France, haven't we, that we are going to be spending much more money and working with them to try and solve this problem, which is good. What do you think, just briefly, about the whole idea of sending people off to Rwanda, though, once they are over here?
We've only got 200 places. What are you going to do? There are more people across that this weekend. So that's not a deterrent at all. Rwanda is just a waste of time, waste of money. It's something we can't police, and it's just a gimmick to try and get the voters back on side in order for an election that's coming in a few years. What we need to do with that money is invest in the border force, invest in elite units to catch these gangs. We need to spend, if we'd have spent, say, 200 million on these gangs, catching these gangs, we would have caught them by now. There can't be that many that operate from the coast of France and send people to the coast of Kent. And we haven't got a clue. And if we haven't got a clue, after all our army, navy and intelligence and MI5 and whatever we've got, and Europol, then God help us.
No, I hear you. Harjab, thank you very much indeed. Benjamin, thank you, from the Bow Group, and immigration lawyer Harjab Bangal. I appreciate you joining me tonight, and I wish you both a very happy new year. Right, something maybe a little bit lighter this evening. Coming up, is Christmas telly dead? My panel debate that on the only channel you need to be watching all year round, that of course is GB News. We will see you in 3 minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, welcome back to your Thursday night. Let's take a look at some of tomorrow's front pages that are literally hot off the press. So, Daily Telegraph, actually, I've got to say it's a full house of Pele, who sadly died earlier this evening. So the Daily Telegraph, a picture of Pele, but also ministers to look at new COVID travel curbs. Oh, my God, please no. The Eye has tributes to a magician. Police recruits quit Johnson's hiring scheme in droves. Daily Star, that infamous picture of Pele and Bobby Moore, of course, with their shirts off. Just brilliant. Pele, the greatest footballer of all time, dies at 82. The real GOAT, they called him. Daily Express, Pele, king of the beautiful game, dies aged 82. No magic wand for pay rises. Minister lays down law to unions, threatening general strike lasting months. Independent, also Pele. Mental health crisis is now a parallel pandemic, though, is their other headline. The Guardian, it's Pele again being held aloft. What a great smile that man had. Oh, my goodness. And 1 in 10 Tory peers have given more than 100,000 to the party is their headline. And the Mirror, the best. Keeping it very simple. Pele, 1940 to 2022. World hails divine genius who made football beautiful. So, I mean, look, we talked about Pele a little bit earlier on after we'd first heard the news. But, I mean, an incredible football player, clearly. But also you have to, you know, the only individual to ever have held 3 World Cups, incredibly, 58, 62, 70. And the first superstar black athlete as well that went global. So a real trailblazer as well.
I think what's really special about Pele, which is lesser known, is that he was such an open and honest man. So he was obviously an icon in Brazil, and there was a lot of political unrest at the time, and he didn't say anything. And in his book and in public statements he made, he said he wished he'd used his fame to be more effective for the people of Brazil, and to open yourself up for criticism in such a strong, profound way just speaks volumes to the quality of the man. And for me, above his, you know, the fact that he's a football icon, it's that kind of public discourse that will stick out for me.
Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a massive football person, and I know who Pele is, and everybody grew up knowing who Pele is, no matter how much they were into football or not. And he was an icon, and I think he transcended football in many ways. Yep. You know, he was somebody who spoke out on issues you wouldn't expect him to. He was really honest about things later on in life. So, for example, he used to talk about impotence, which for such a masculine icon is such an incredibly important thing to do, actually, to say it never emasculated him. Yep. To be honest about those things, and I think that's such a great piece of leadership from him.
True.
So beyond the football pitch, beyond Brazil, the whole world knows who he was and knows what a strong and just incredible leader he was.
Colvia?
I was mesmerised. I was mesmerised by the way he played the game that I fell in love with as a young man. And he's the one person, actually there's 2 people I have a framed picture of, and they're both together as a picture, it's him and Muhammad Ali. These are 2 sporting heroes to me. He's signed it, I don't know, I got it for some place, some charity somewhere, charity auction, but I feel quite upset hearing about his death today. He transcended football because he kept quiet, because he spoke about those things, yes, that he cared about, but his grace as a human being reflected his grace as a footballer. And I think that's what you notice. Even as a child, there was something that you connected with that. There wasn't the sort of trappings of what we see now with superstardom and the Uber money and everything else. He was still normalised in our lives. And I think that's the beauty that we saw, and it didn't change him.
Yeah.
He was still that same human being all the way through his life, and that was beautiful.
A true national hero, and had a really enigmatic smile. He just looked so happy to be playing the game. A real sad loss. The only good thing that'll come out of this is for the next few days, we'll be just seeing endless clips of some of the most amazing goals ever scored in the beautiful game. Now, Christmas had a different feel this year because it was the first one since 2019 not to be wrecked by the dreaded COVID. This year, the great British public have been flooding out to visit family and meet friends up the town, as long as their plans weren't affected by train strikes, that is. But has all this gallivanting come at a cost? Have you, like my superstar panel Colvia Ranger, been struggling to find the time for some good old-fashioned Christmas telly, and has it been any good?
It's been a challenge, Neil. I'm completely confused because
you know, let me be honest, I was one of those people who used to buy the Radio Times, the TV Times, circle all those things that I wanted to both watch and record at the same time, make sure I listened to your, you know, chart show as well.
Clearly, good man.
But nowadays, I'm lost. I'm completely lost with the platforms, with the streaming, and I'm not sure what's on the main channels anymore. So, but what we've done this year is we've gone out. So Christmas telly has been written off in our house. Wow. We've been out because we can, and we've gone to the theatre. We saw Panto. We saw Aladdin at the local Waters Meet in Northwood, in Rickmansworth. Got to give a shout out for them. Fantastic Panto. We've seen Hey Dougie at the South Bank. Now, I've got 2 young children. OK. So there's a reason I just...
I was going to say, if it was you and a bunch of mates, I'd be slightly worried now.
They're not behind me. They were with me at the shows. But the telly has been confusing. I did watch, obviously, the King's speech, which I thought was fantastic. That was the one thing, you know what time it's going to be on, just after the Christmas lunch. You're in the middle of your Christmas lunch. If it's running a bit late for us, as it was, you watch that. But really, I've struggled to find telly that really is landmark Christmas telly. I may have missed it amongst all the platforms.
I wonder if it's because there are just too many platforms. We've just got too much choice now. I did notice when I was flicking through, I can't remember, it was either Christmas Day or Boxing Day. When I was a kid, you would look forward to, say, the Morecambe and Wise Christmas special. I kind of laughed to myself because BBC Two, sort of prime time in the evening on one of those 2 days, was showing the Morecambe and Wise Christmas special. You go, that's 40 years old, for goodness sake. What are you doing with my licence fee, BBC?
The problem is actually choice. Because why Christmas television was such an event, you know, 1 in 3 people had definitely seen what you had seen, because they were the only things on telly. So when you got back to that cooler or you got back to school, you had the conversation. Did you watch the James Bond film? Did you watch the variety special? Did you watch more? And so you all had that conversation. So it gave a bit of community. And it meant that certain films became iconoclast because they were pushed again and again and again. And actually, modern films, James Bond is only so big because of its Christmas appearances. And that's lingered on. And I sometimes look at young people and think, I wish you had what we had, less choice, more focus. Like if Michael Jackson, Madonna released something, everybody knew. Now there's so many stars pushed down your neck every day, you don't know what's going on. And that's very large around Christmas television. We are just simply all watching it, but we're all watching something different.
Yeah, and you can just have too much of it. You kind of think, what shall I watch? By the time you've started looking, you literally can be scrolling through for like half an hour thinking, there's nothing to watch. There's thousands of things to watch.
No, in the run-up to Christmas, there was The Traitors, which I think everyone was. That was almost like the old-fashioned event television. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was watching it. Everyone was like, oh, my God, are they going to find out that Wilf is a baddie? It really felt like that old-fashioned way of watching television together, which was fantastic. Now, for me, I adore Emmerdale. Emmerdale is my absolute favourite thing. So this year it was Dingle all the way. We got a new Dingle for Christmas, which is amazing.
Is it 50 years of Emmerdale?
It's 50 years this year, absolutely.
But I think the challenge this Christmas as well has been the World Cup. Because actually, in our household, we were sort of focused on the World Cup, which meant it kind of ruined the run-up. You didn't get that sort of feed into Christmas. And the matches were good. England did all right to a certain degree, and we were all into this tournament. And then suddenly, hold on, it's a week to Christmas.
Well, I hate to say it, I actually rather enjoyed a Winter World Cup. Maybe that's an unpopular thing, but I hope we don't do it again.
Matches, I mean, the final was stunning. Absolutely stunning.
And even, I'm sure, Messi would be sad to see the legend go away, for sure. Well, look, coming up, funny man Tommy Sandu joins me with his secrets to having a luckier year in 2023. That's right after this break.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hey, welcome back. Now, you may not know this, but today is a day for celebration because it's officially 35 years since we first heard this iconic chart chopper. Yeah, Kylie Minogue's I Should Be So Lucky, but at that time, we really just knew her as Charlene from Neighbours, really. It was released on the 29th of December, 1987. But as we head towards the year 2023, are you feeling optimistic about your prospects, or do you need a little bit of dose of lady luck like Kylie? Well, according to an expert in Feng Shui, there are 5 simple tips to follow to actually welcome luck into your home. And here to talk us through how you can boost your family's fortunes is the comedian and broadcaster Tommy Sandu. Right, good evening, Tommy. Welcome along. How are you?
Good evening, Dr. Fox. Great to be with you. And I got to say, hey, when you hear that song, when you hear I Should Be So Lucky, 2 things will happen. You'll either go, God, has it really been 35 years? Or, holy, it's been 35 years. Where were you when that song was number 1? You were what, Radio Luxembourg, weren't you, 1987?
No, by the time that came out, I had moved to Capital, and I remember when the first time she ever came to Britain to perform that song in front of the world's press, we were there to introduce her at the Hammersmith Palais.
Look at that. That's classic. Those are golden times. And those times have all changed now, but it's still a great song. And I got to say, I was just reading around the song when I realized it was 35 years old. And it was a complete kind of mistake, accident kind of thing. They were due to, Stockholm and Waterman were due to record with Kylie. They didn't know about it. Then she turns up. She was all annoyed. They literally penned the song while they sent her off for a coffee. And bang, 40 minutes later, she's recorded it in less than an hour, and you've got a number 1 hit. So it tells us that luck is always around the corner. So how can we do it? Obviously, to know more about Feng Shui, what you need is a British Indian on the show to tell you all about Chinese good luck. That makes sense, doesn't it? Completely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Of course it does. It's all Asian. It's fine. No, right. So what really these 5 tips are about? Because as the I Should Be So Lucky song story was out, they were talking about other stories about luck were in the press. And I just thought this is interesting because I'm all for good vibes. Everybody wants to create good vibes around them. So the Feng Shui thing is really all about creating an environment around you that lets the luck flow. Tip number 1 is clean your house, declutter. So I don't know. Firstly, when I started reading these tips, I thought, maybe my missus has written these tips as a little hint to make me start cleaning up the house. I thought maybe she's trying to say, pick your pants up. Tip number 1, Feng Shui tip, is declutter. Because if your house is actually decluttered, you're allowing good energy in. And that's really important. So number 1, clean up in the new year. Number 2, use blue, green, or yellow curtains.
Yellow?
Have you got? Yeah. Blue, green, or yellow. If you did all 3, it'd be like the Brazil flag. That would be like a Pelé tribute. I'm not sure if you want to do that. But blue, green, and yellow curtains is apparently really good for letting in luck because it says this is each of the colours symbolising. Blue stands for wisdom, knowledge, and intelligence, and is particularly lucky in 2023 because it's the year of the water rabbit. And we all know. Have you ever met a silly water rabbit? I haven't. They're always dead clever. So
I've never even met a water rabbit, got to be honest. What's number 3?
Right, number 3 is don't keep the dining table empty. If you want food in abundance, if you want all the riches of life, then you've got to have some fruit or have something on your dinner table. So don't leave your dinner table empty. A dinner table that's busy will mean you'll have a busy larder or a busy pantry or a busy fridge, whatever you might have in your house. So it's always good to keep something on the dinner table. Number 4, and this is a weird one, add metallic accents to your lounge area. So you want some metal around you. Maybe you want to cover your cushions in a little bit of tin foil or something like that. I don't know. Just kind of get that kind of reflective metallic nature going on. That's supposed to be really good. And number 5 is use pastel colors on your bed sheets. So you want nice light colors on your bed, which I know might show up things. So you know, you got to balance that out. I don't know what, you know, I'm thinking just, you know.
Yeah. Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I will speak for myself. I do. So there you go. So basically, those are your 5 tips. Bit of metallic, pastel colours in the bed sheets, and it says those earth colours in the bedroom are a must. They attract good rest, good sleep, and more importantly, good luck for 2023. There you go. That's what we want. We just want a bit of luck. God, Fox, we need it now, don't we? We need a bit of luck.
Oh my God, we need a much luckier 2023. That is for sure. Tommy, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Okay. I hope you're going to take all your top tips to heart now and rearrange your house.
Mate, I'm painting tonight. I was watching your show. Everything's pastel yellow and metallic around here. Oh, look, there goes the water rabbit. Hey, look, all right, I better go chase him down. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to share.
Sounds a right bloody mess if you ask me, but there you go. Anyway, you have a very happy new year. OK, it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. OK, with me to reveal theirs has been my superstar panel tonight. I've been on real top form. Former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, journalist and political consultant Emma Burnell, and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Culvier Ranger. Lady and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Right, so who should we start with? Come on, let's go to Sean. Sean, who's your greatest Briton?
My honorary greatest Briton is Pele, who unfortunately passed away today, aged 82. He was a master of the beautiful game. He was a revered icon across the world. He was a lovely man with an infectious smile. So he's my honorary greatest Briton today.
Emma, your greatest Briton, please.
I want to give a shout out to the people who did all the hard work. When I was volunteering at Crisis, I was running the shift office, so I was sat down at a computer for 8 hours, but these people were running around. You should have seen the step counts I was seeing. Okay. Really, really just working non-stop, 9-hour shifts, really make a difference. And it's ordinary people like that who give up their time that just make me feel really, really proud to be British.
All right, Emma, thank you very much. Culvier?
Well, mine was going to be Harry Kane for how he shrugged off the penalty miss to come back scoring for Tottenham in the last few days and all the weight and pressure and everything else that he's dealt with. But actually, with the sad news we've had of Dame Vivienne Westwood passing away this evening, you know, she's got to be my honorary greatest Briton. Transcends fashion, transcended all those amazing things she's done in her entire life. She'll be a legend going forward in her death as well, no doubt.
OK. And now, please, for your jackass. Who's your union jackass, Sean?
My union jackass is the SNP's Angus Robinson, who likened their new gender laws to the fight against apartheid in South Africa. He obviously doesn't understand how offensive that is to black people. The emancipation of black people has been 400 years plus in the making, and to liken his new gender laws, Nicola Sturgeon's new gender laws, to that colossal fight that continues today is offensive on a level that simply cannot be explained.
Emma, union jackass, please.
Well, it's been such a nice show, so it feels a bit mean, but I just want to say to Julia Hartley-Brewer, take a day off. For goodness sake, woman, she's been tweeting vile things about Greta Thunberg today. And when your big enemy is some 17-year-old kid who gets up your nose, then you've got to have better priorities, love.
Yeah, and I think as soon as you start name-calling, which she did, you kind of go, I think you just lost the argument straight away, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Culvier, union jackass, please.
We have achieved freedom, I believe, from COVID through the things we went through the last couple of years. We know the Chinese are now having COVID rampaging through their country. Why is our health security agency, border agency, saying that they're not doing anything about checking flights from China? The Americans are, the Japanese are, the Indians are. Everyone's taking a bit of precaution because we know China, having lifted its virtual lockdown and now basically COVID is rampaging through there. We need to take some kind of precaution, like many other countries. Come on, Health Border Agency, do something about it. No one wants us to go back to the dark old days.
Yeah. Well, now, I get the casting vote on this one, so actually I'm going to say my Union Jackass is Angus Robertson for sure. I have to be honest, because we had all this some time ago with Meghan Markle likening her wedding to Harry as something as well that brought joy to the South African nation, which was ridiculous. But I think this one is truly ridiculous. And as you said, actually, Sean, pretty offensive to a lot of people as well, and actually absolutely ridiculous. Sometimes I think these people are making crazy headlines just for themselves. That seems why they make these statements, but it doesn't seem to be based on anything apart from that. Let's look now at something a little more positive, because it has been a very positive show, and thank you very much, panel, for doing that. Greatest Britain. Actually, I would have to say it's a greatest honorary Britain, although obviously very sad about Vivienne Westwood. I would like to go with Pelé, because football is this global game. Look at that smile. One of the greatest we have ever seen for sure. And will we ever see the likes of him again? Well, thank you very much indeed, Sean. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Colvia. What a great panel. That's all from me. Obviously, Dan's going to be back next week when things get a little bit back to normal after your Christmas and your New Year. But thank you for watching. I'm going to be back again on Sunday night. Time-o for headliners.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere. Amazing! You see, amazing! You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel. Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful. Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.